Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring another movie review. This time we're going to be talking about the 2015 werewolf horror film, Howl. And I got the DVD copy right here. In my almost endless stack of about like 10 or 11 movies there that I bought but still have yet to watch. I actually bought this one not that long ago, though. Excuse me. I'm just trying to make more of a point to actually watch, some of the movies over there. It's just hard not to watch a TV show, that I'm into sometimes, but I'm getting to them. And Howl is a movie I was interested in a little while ago. I read some articles about it. Some articles even saying it's among like the top 10 best werewolf movies ever made. And you guys know me. If you watch my channel at all, I'm a big horror movie fan. I got a Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger poster in my background there. But werewolf horror movies, they can be some of my favorites, but they can also be semi-underwhelming, just depending on how things go. I did a review on An American Werewolf in London a little while ago. Not really the classic people make it out to be, for me anyway. There's some things I liked about it, but just some things that didn't really work for me. You guys can go watch that review to hear about that. But werewolves themselves are some like my favorite movie monsters. Werewolves and vampires for sure. Just depending on what movie and what versions and everything. I like things from more suspenseful, old school stuff, to CG depending on how it is, but you always appreciate the more practical effects for sure. To things like Underworld, which can be enjoyed in their own right too, but it's just different. And Howl, is directed by, let me just make sure I got the name right. Yeah, directed by Paul Hyatt, and it starred Ed Speleers, Holly Weston, Shauna McDonald, along with Elliot Cohen. I could just go on naming the cast. Also, a brief role from Sean Pertwee, who plays, Alfred on the Gotham TV show on Fox. That's a show I'm getting back into, by the way. Probably do a video on it at some point in the next week or so. On season 2, anyway. I need to catch up on 3. But anyway, Howl. I actually really, really liked this movie. Before we get into that, though, I guess I should briefly explain the story. Basically, it follows the sort of, down on his luck guy named Joe. He's basically like an usher type of guy on this train. And, he's sort of depressed, like I said, down on his luck, just because, he didn't get his promotion. He's a really nice guy, but there's a lot of dicks in his life, too. So he's just kind of at a pretty low point, mentally. And of course, when he's just working one of these jobs, or on a train to a certain part, I forget where they were going exactly, but something happens to the train, then it stops, and stops running, and then they're stuck in the middle of this forest, where of course a werewolf is prowling around. So that's the basic story there. And like on one hand, people have said they wish there's more to the story, or they wish there's like something bigger going on or something. There's more to the premise. But I honestly think simplicity, it can often be just as good. And this movie definitely had enough going for it. Because what I also liked before it even got into the werewolf stuff is how they did show the characters for the brief time before all the shit started going down. Like Joe, I did like him as a lead. I thought Ed Speleers did a fine job. I found him to be pretty relatable, because when he's first getting all the passengers set, to go off on the train and everything, he's checking the tickets. A lot of them, make like these weird, comments, or they're hounding him, or they're, they're just being like really critical of anything he does. It's probably somewhat exaggerated, but I work in a service, type of job, customer service in a way. So I can sort of relate to some of that nagging stuff there, I guess. So I found Joe as a lead to be actually pretty relatable. So I like that. Of course, he's also crushing on this girl, who he works alongside and everything. So that's kind of the subplot, but it never really takes attention away from the issue at hand. And then of course a lot of the passengers they have some distinct personalities. There's this sort of rough around the edges girl. Then there's like this cocky rich douche, and then there's like this average looking guy about Joe's age, who he seems kind of smart and a little bit reserved though. And then there's this like geek nerd type of guy who ends up being very capable of violence himself. So there are distinct personalities, and I watched one review saying they could have taken more time to develop that, or they should have shown more of that, but I thought they did alright, while still getting to the point of the film. And I'll say it right now, I thought it was a better movie than An American Werewolf in London, honestly. One of the best werewolf movies I've seen, and one of the best horror movies in general I've watched in a while, was Howl. I only have like a couple gripes with it, but overall I think it was a really good experience. I like the premise, first off, it just, it's a nice setup for a suspenseful, hopefully somewhat scary and violent time. And there's a good amount of suspense, I like the way the film was shot, the way they sort of teased the werewolf before really seeing it full on. I thought that was pretty good. The practical effects when they are used are good. I like them a lot, the way they did the blood and everything, and certain parts of the werewolf you could tell was practical. As far as like the CG goes, CG wasn't the best, I'll admit that. It was alright, sometimes made it a little bit unconvincing, but because I was buying into the rest of the movie so much, I sort of got past that. As far as like the werewolf design itself, you can see some of it in my thumbnail or on the cover. There's not like quite as much fur on it in the actual movie. It looks a little bit different here for some reason, but there's more than one werewolf in the movie, by the way. I'll just say that. There's spoilers on the title, so don't yell at me. But as far as the werewolf design itself, it was fine. Definitely not my favorite. I think my favorite like werewolf Wolfman design is definitely from the 2010 Wolfman remake. But this is definitely better than some. I actually like this design more than An American Werewolf in London. I like Dog Soldiers. That's a movie I need to do a video on at some point. But just like the big wolf head and that, in those movies, I didn't really care for. This one's more humanoid, a little bit more like the classic Wolfman, but they have like this mutant, sort of flair to them in a way. It's not like over the top, too over the top or anything. But they still try to make them a little bit different, and I thought it was alright. The only thing that hinders it a little bit is, like I said, the CGI can be a little bit off at times, and like once in a while when you see some of the other werewolves that are around, some of the variations on the design, they get a little bit like too almost like fantasy like in a way. So some of them are a little bit better than others, but I still was fine for the most part with the design, just some of the CG, I guess. But I didn't take away from the movie. Like I said, I liked some of the characters, the main character especially. There's also this older couple on board, and this really nice older guy who actually gives a couple speeches to motivate the rest of the group. And he makes a reference to this other train accident in 1963. Where some of the passengers were found partially devoured and everything like that. It makes you think, right? But he's also a character you knew was going to die, and that's another thing in the setup. There's a lot of passengers, so most of them are just part of the body count. It's a pretty simple setup for the body count. But again, I was fine with that. And like at first they try to get off the train to try and run as fast as they can, basically. Excuse me. But and I was a little bit bummed out when I thought they were just gonna be in the forest, but they go back to the train for protection. And the characters were semi-smart in this movie. Like they end up barricading up the windows and the doors and things like that. So they're not like the worst cliches in a horror movie, I don't think. And of course, the old couple, the old woman, she ends up getting bitten, sort of like dragged along the door. And of course, she eventually turns. When she turns, she's a pretty creepy looking werewolf. I'll say that. She's not like fully, transformed yet, but she looks creepy as hell. Like she has these like yellow kind of eyes, and then she has these teeth. But at the same time, she has like this frozen grin on her face when she's walking towards them. It's a little, odd, creepy. So I like that. There's a lot I could say about this movie, and was it scary? Like I said in my other horror movie reviews, it takes quite a bit to scare me in a movie nowadays. I'm kind of numb, to that type of stuff because I've seen so much. But when a movie makes me feel like nervous, or anything like that, or tense, then I think it did the job. And this movie did at times. It had a decent amount of suspense to it, but also had some pretty violent moments as well. So I think it was actually pretty well rounded. And as far as like the ending goes, I was pretty surprised by the death of. Let me see. I was pretty surprised by the death of Kate, Sean McDonald's character in this movie, because she is developed, one of the more developed ones in the movie. But she ends up being booted off the train by Adrian, Elliot Cohen's character. And then I guess devoured. I guess. It was also kind of odd, like what people they chose to turn and what people they would just kill. And with her death, it was kind of odd because before she gets like attacked, it cuts right before she gets hit or anything. So you thought she was going to show up later, turned or something, go after Adrian, but she never does. I think they should have done that in the movie instead of what they ended up doing, but I'll talk about that in a second. I did like Matthew Emmett Shea. He's the nerd I told you about, but he ends up, being the one, chopping the first werewolf in the face and everything with an axe over and over. That was pretty cool. I also did like Billy. He's a younger, sort of average guy I told you about, but he's, he has a good head on his shoulders. He's one of the more reasonable characters, and he ends up being the one trying to fix the engine, and he does. But unfortunately, when he's trying to hold on, it breaks off one of the cords again, causes it to leak. And he ends up sacrificing himself to help Joe and Ellen. Joe ends up staying behind so Ellen can get away, and he fends off some of the werewolves, but then they eventually overwhelm him and bite him and everything. And then in turn, Joe later on finds Adrian, who had gotten off the train, and kills him, of course, just before it cuts to black. It was implied that Adrian would die right there. I thought the movie is pretty engaging. There are some like slower moments where the characters, bond a little bit. Some people complain about that. Why would that happen midway through the movie when they're under this attack? Why is there a pause in what the werewolf's doing? I don't know. I didn't think it was a big deal. I think you just say the werewolf was trying to find a way and was sort of like sneaking around or something. Sort of watching them. I think that's creepy to think about. I don't think it was a huge problem really. So yeah, there's I could probably keep talking about the movie, but I just think it was a really well-rounded, good werewolf horror movie. Some of the CGI isn't the best at times. The design is all right. Not one of my favorites, but I do think it's better than a lot of them. But I think this is definitely worth checking out. I was really happy with it. I liked it quite a bit. It had my attention. Let me let my dog out real quick. Well, no, I can just finish the review. Jesus. Okay, I'm letting her out. Sorry about that, guys. I promise I'm not under siege by a werewolf right now, as far as I know. But anyway, a really good time actually, and if I had to rate it, I would rate it a B+. Yeah, one of my favorites I've seen in a while. Actually, glad I bought it. This is one I was looking at ordering online at some point, but I found out like a used local place in my area for about like $5 or $7. Definitely a good deal. But yeah, definitely check this out if you haven't. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.